Hello, everyone. I think this is my first video interview in English ever, and it's a huge one. If you recognize the radiating sex appeal of a man on my right or my left, you're certifiably young and good looking. But if you've been living under a rock, missing out on hardcore punk classics, career that is unkillable, uncancelable, let me introduce you to the hardcore punk legend, the music and book author, Blag Dahlia, aka Black Jesus, aka Ralph Champagne, the founder, singer, frontman, and probably the highest person in the cult hardcore punk band, the Dwarves. Welcome.
Wow, what a brilliant introduction. Well, it's great to be here.
You deserve it, man. You deserve it. Believe me, I'm getting starstruck. And if I just start like collapsing or something, please bear with me because I have so many things to ask. And
Wow. What
let's
country is this?
This is Bosnia and Herzegovina, but we're playing together in Zabok. We're playing
Oh,
on July 3rd in Zabok. I'm playing
in
with my.
Hungary,
No, it's in Croatia. It's next to
in
Zagreb.
Croatia. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we are in Zabok, and then you go to Pula the day after, where you're playing with I Hate God, I think.
Hmm.
So it's gonna be a nice tour for you guys on the EU tour. So
Yeah.
let's start. When someone calls you hardcore punk legend, although you've earned it, what's the first instinct, to embrace it or deny it?
Oh, I embrace it very much so. I'm honored, always loved punk rock and hardcore, although the definitions of those things change, over time. Hardcore kind of became a little more like heavy metal in a way, and punk kind of became a bunch of people protesting each other. So, those things get a little silly. I mean, to me, it's rock and roll. I sort of embraced all of rock and roll around the same time. When I just started high school, I got interested in like 60s garage punk, and it was obscure and nobody knew it, and there was no internet, and you kind of had to find this stuff. And that sort of brought me into rockabilly. And then I saw a movie called Decline of Western Civilization, and that sort of brought me into hardcore punk, and it all happened around the same time. So to me, it's all part of one thing. And that's kind of what the Dwarves have done, over the last 25 years is make these records that are sort of everything. They got little 60s, little 50s, little 70s, but also very modern. And, we were one of the first punk bands to use processed drums and samples and all these kinds of things. So to me, it's just all part of one thing, but I think what most people would know me as is like punk rock. And, yeah, I'm very, very proud of it.
Yeah, and also you branched out yourself. We're going to talk about your solo career uh, later on. Let's go with the new album. The new album, Jenkem, named after a really crude and cheap drug. I don't understand. It's some kind of human waste that people
Yeah,
like.
basically like it's an inhalant like
Okay,
for people who are like too poor to get like glue or paint and huff that. So they just,
Jesus.
shit in a container and seal it. And then when the fumes come up, they inhale it.
Oh my
That's
God. Oh my God.
ridiculous.
Who came up with the name for the record? Is it you?
Our drummer Snoopak introduced me to the idea. And I was like, wow, all right.
Okay, cool. The new album arrives on June 6th or June 5th. I'm not sure. It's
June 5th. Yeah.
June 5th, yeah. It's 14 songs under 19 minutes. And setting aside Sunshine, Lollipops, and Rainbows, this is Dwarf's third shortest LP. Did you intend it to that way, or it just happened like that?
Yeah, I mean, the one before this was called Concept Album.
Yeah,
And that was sort of the our
positive
first
one.
one after the pandemic. And that one had a lot of different styles in it, a lot of different musicians. And, Josh Freese was on there playing drums a lot. And it was a very kind of sophisticated studio album. I sort of thought of it as like our white album. it had all these different genres, everything from pop punk to noise to garage rock and a lot of songs. And so for this one, we just said, let's just bust out a punk record, you know. But what was funny was I didn't feel like we quite had enough material. And so right at the end, I wrote this kind of mid-tempo rock, like sounds like an 80s rock jam to me, which I really like, called Damned If I Do. And that turned out to be the single and the video. That video is gonna premiere on Decibel on June 4th. And then that is gonna come out, you know. So we did like a nice, like high production value Hollywood video for it and everything. So yeah, it was weird. It's like it's mostly like a pretty straightforward punk record. And to kind of commemorate that, instead of having our usual photo shoot, bunch of naked women and stuff, I just made it look like a bootleg from the 70s, you know, and it's just very stark album cover. And you know, you just kind of when you hold it in your hands, you kind of get it. And you play the record, it's very straightforward rock and roll kind of record. So it was different than the last couple ones.
Yeah, you basically answered my question. I wanted to say that the cover is so common. It's so undwarves. It's like you grew up, no chicks, no
I wouldn't
blood.
say it's like we dressed up, like we grew up, because it was meant to like look like a bootleg,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like that nobody put a cover on it. And it was just like, you know, here you go.
yeah. I've
So
seen.
yeah, you know, we like to switch it up.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen the jacket on the inside, and there's like seven names listed on the record. But
Right.
as far as I've seen, there's only four of you guys playing. So this is a question about lineups. Who worked on the Jenkem and who's coming to Europe? So how does that work? Do these lineups intertwine somehow, or you have a strict rule about who contributes to the
Yeah,
album?
dwarves are kind of like, you know, the Wu-Tang clan of punk, right? You know, there's just all these different people that we know. And we've been around so long, you know, old friends of mine still come in. You know, Saltpeter, the original bass player, wrote one of the songs on here. Um, and he'll come in and play sometimes, you know. But yeah, the lineup was it was me, Nick Oliveri, who we call Rex Everything, on bass, Snoop Dogg, who's you know, played drums, and he's the singer for a band called Get a Grip. And on guitar was Fresh Prince of Darkness. But then for live, various guys have come in. So over the over the past year or two, it's been like Mike Pygmy or Ginger are the two guys who've been playing guitar. Um, so yeah, it's one of those things, you know, we have a big field of people to choose from.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
so
Tell me, is there anything special about the Dwarf's creative process at this stage? Something that changed throughout the years?
the thing that I like the best, which has always been part of the Dwarves, is that everybody writes songs. You know, I think a lot of the times the leader of the band or whatever, which in this case is me, writes all the songs. And so you get this kind of one-dimensional songwriting where everything's the same. That's what most punk bands sound like to me, or there's like two guys and everything sounds like that. So I think it's allowed us to make more interesting, varied records because everybody writes. And when people write music, I find they have more of an understanding of music and how to play it. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
I just think like everybody should write songs. I don't really understand people that don't, you know, but there you go.
Why they don't? Yeah. About Jenkem, you're once again going with the greedy media, so you're basically DIY, and you've been
Yes,
on.
Greedy Media is my label,
Yeah.
which is
Why?
just, well, because you know, when we started, we made records. You know, our first record was on Bomp, which was an old kind of garage label. And then we made records for Sub Pop and for Epitaph. And what you find is that like these labels lose interest in you, and then suddenly your record's out of print, and you put all this work in it,
Hmm.
and you know, it's like having your baby buried in a closet somewhere. So I got all of my records back. I have all the records and I put them out under my label Greedy, but it isn't like a label in the sense of like a bunch of workers sitting around. It's just everything I have the copyrights to is Greedy.
Cool, cool. You already mentioned "We Are the Scene" is the first single of the record. It's out. "Damned If I Do" is coming out, and it's a sweet, sweet song. So, just after these songs, what songs are your favorite from this new record? Which one do you like playing live?
Well, the opening track is called Confused, which I thought was very
Hi.
kind of sums up young people's sexual practices now. It's just
Hey
like,
and hi.
yeah, it's like, hey, I'm gay. Ain't that what the kids all say? Hey, I'm they. I don't know if that means I'm gay. Hi, I'm bi. I got to give it all a try. And then the chorus is like, I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. It's sort of like poking fun at that modern kind of amorphous sexuality thing. It's hard, right? Because I never saw the Dwarves as like actually taking the culture war seriously. Now there's people who want to stamp out gay people or, get rid of trans people or whatever. And that's never been what we're like. We're for all the freaks. We love everybody. We just like to make fun of things. And so it's hard sometimes, for people to understand that it's humor. But yeah, there's a bunch of cool songs on here. The last track on the record is the one by Saltpeter called "Last Chance Lily," which is almost more like a '50s doo-wop kind of song. Nick Oliveri always contributes a couple, but the nastiest, most hardcore jam on there is his song "I Wish You Were Dead." And yeah, there's all kinds of cool jams on here. I think my favorite that I wrote was called "Bad Drugs."
I wanted to ask about that one next.
It's just so, like there's a lot of pro drugs dwarf songs, but I was like, maybe I should write about the drugs I don't like. So it's about like Adderall, Ritalin, fentanyl,
Fentanyl, yeah.
like all the shit that kills you, or so it's just like, hey, don't don't forget, there's these bad drugs.
Yeah, it's like a funny warning. And I
Right.
really
Yeah.
wanted to ask about that song, so we already told that we should avoid those kind of drugs. Um, about
Well,
your,
I mean, I don't really, I don't really preach at people about what drugs they should take. It's just like my take on Adderall is like it's like trying to be productive while you're on dope. I
yeah,
just don't really get that, and like Ritalin is, I don't know if they still give that to kids. When I was young, they would give it to all the hyperactive kids to just get them to sit down and shut up.
I
And
think they're
then
beating up
fentanyl,
kids in Bosnia, so I think they're beating up kids who are hyperactive. They don't give drugs out, not
is that
yet.
right?
Yeah, not yet.
Now, we've never been to Bosnia. I'd be very curious to go there. But like fentanyl, it's like Jesus, man, heroin wasn't enough. You need something that just fucking kills you.
Yeah,
I mean,
zombie drug, zombie drug.
yeah. I think there's a lot of zombies walking around on hard drugs. So we were always more like enjoy yourself. Have a sense of humor. I didn't really want people paralyzed with their drugs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So Jenkem coming out June 5th. Let's go to your really perfect singing. And what I really enjoyed about your
Hear what
singing
my
is
voice
that
sounds like now. It's
yeah,
not,
it's
not
it's
so
it's
perfect.
perfect. Even those low ends, they sound completely fine. What I really enjoyed when I play some of your songs, when I say yours, it's Blag Dahlia, it's Ralph Spain, whatever. When I play to people who maybe hate some other parts of your catalog and they are completely shocked by the variety of it all. You can hear the 50s, the 60s, the 70s when you sing. Uh, what was the moment when you realized, like, fuck, I can really sing and I can reach out into that stuff to into the hardcore punk scene with actual singing.
Yeah, it's funny. It was it was probably around the time we did the song "Dwarves Are Young and Good Looking," or we did the record "The Dwarves Are Young and Good Looking," which had like "Everybody's Girl" and "One Time Only." And I finally met up with a good producer, Eric Valentine, and he, when that record came out, I was like, wow, you can really listen to this. It's listenable. It's great. all the previous Dwarves records had been cool and there had been good stuff on there, but they had kind of a hard edge that was not as listenable. And when Young and Good Looking came out, I was like, wow, this is still hardcore and it's still got loud guitar and it's still nasty and fast, but it was like it sounded good. So, and then around the time we did the record Dwarves Must Die, and by that time, Eric was a very famous producer. He at the time he did Young and Good Looking, he was also doing Third Eye Blind and Smash Mouth, which nobody had heard of them at that time. By the time we did Must Die, he was like this established big time Hollywood producer. And I sang a song on there. I think maybe it was Like You Want or one of those. And he complimented me on my voice. And I was like, wow, Eric thinks I can sing, like it was, I remember that was like a big moment for me. Like, wow, I can sing. And so now I've kind of taken that with my solo thing. There was the Ralph Champagne record came out a couple years ago, and now I'm making the Ralph Champagne Review album, which is coming out for Christmas this year. And I'm singing lounge stuff and country stuff and other things, so it really helped my confidence to feel like I could sing things for real. I get a lot of help from my producer, my friend Andy Carpenter. He keeps me on point with pitch and stuff like that. Like I'm still a rock and roll singer at my core, so like I know how to do that. But when it comes to like really trying to sing a song and catch every part of the melody and do everything, it's like I need some help.
Yeah. You mentioned Ralph Champagne, and I took a listen like 2 months ago or something like that, and I was completely stunned because you have this very specific outlaw country energy in the whole album, and the
Yeah,
outlaw country is basically the American thing. I haven't seen it in Europe anywhere. So, what
yeah.
was your introduction? I know you had stints with you visited Gigi Allen in a jail, and he also did some outlaw country. What was your introduction to that kind of music?
I haven't heard the phrase Alpo country. They call it sometimes they call it alternative country or they call it
Alternative, yeah.
outlaw. Uh,
Outlaw, yeah. Outlaw. I said
uh,
outlaw. Maybe
okay, outlaw. Yeah. You know, my first experience was just listening to like Merle Haggard records and Willie Nelson records. I mean, I'm a big country music fan. I just didn't really incorporate that into the Dwarves much, but it was I love that kind of stuff. And basically, like the Ralph Champagne thing was interesting. I went in with Andy Carpenter and I demoed like 30 songs. And the ones that sort of most quickly came into focus were those kind of country based ones. So I made that record, which was a Blag Dahlia record, and we called it Introducing Ralph Champagne. And by the time we were done with that, I said, well, I should just let Ralph Champagne be the character. Blag Dahlia is like kind of associated with the Dwarves, and this really seemed like a different thing. So now, the second record, it gets even more crazy because I brought in Petra Hayden, who's a great female vocalist. And she does things like, recreate a whole Who album only using female vocals or, reproduce a whole King Crimson album just using female vocals to do
nice.
all the instruments and the vocal parts. So she's very sophisticated, like sort of the opposite of me. She's very musically literate and sophisticated. And I had her do that thing that she does with the Grinch song. And then I sang it with this voice, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch, and she sang the entire orchestral backing with vocals. So I thought that was amazing. So then I brought her on to do this whole record with me, and it's very interesting because it's a nice counterpoint. She kind of has a sweet voice and does these very complex harmonies and background parts, and then I'm pretty straightforward. So it's a nice combination. I think this one is almost more like 60s easy listening kind of thing. Herb Alpert or Sergio Mendes or something, which is really funny being the guy from the Dwarves and then getting to do stuff where people go, what the fuck is that? Like, that doesn't sound anything like that. That turns me on, having these real different personalities. And then on the other extreme, Mickey Avalon, the rapper, is an old friend of mine, and my friend Andy Carpenter makes great kind of Dr. Dre year 2000 kind of tracks. And I said, oh, we could do something with this. So we made a hip hop group called the Big Dick Hustlers. We're working on that record right now, which includes Z-Man, who's a great rapper from San Francisco. And so, like, yeah, I just like doing very bizarre things that nobody would predict, you know what I mean? Which, has not really helped me commercially because people like something they can get a beat on. So this is this. But this is what's fun for me, to make way different kinds of records.
Yeah, we're blessed. We're fucking blessed. Fuck the mainstream. I think it maybe would be more helpful to your bank account if you were more mainstream, but then again, it's better for us, if you ask me personally.
I like owning all my own records and
Yeah,
doing my own thing.
of course.
That's really as I've gotten older, that's been more and more important to me.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me, as a lyrics writer, are you protective of the stuff you write? Do you allow other people to change your lyrics? Do you have like drafting, like doing the first draft and then going through the drafts? How long does it take for you to do
I
the
mean,
album?
lyrics is really my main thing. I
Hmm.
can write lyrics over anybody else's music, whether it's a hip hop thing or a punk thing or a pop song or whatever it is. I pride myself on being able to write lyrics, for myself, or I would have liked to have done lyric writing for other people too. It just didn't come up that much. But uh, lyrics are big to me, but I'll always take whatever the best line is. Sometimes people mishear a line and then they say to you, oh, I like it when you say so and so. And then it's like, oh shit, I didn't even say that, but yeah, I like that better. Like I'll always change it if I think it's better. Um, and then also I try, to allow other people's lyrics in, whether it's collaboration or whether it's just, um, for instance, like with Nick Oliveri, he's such a great lyric writer. I'm such a fan of his, and really all the guys in the Dwarves. Again, there have been plenty of Dwarf songs where I didn't really write much of it at all. I just kind of produced it and sang it. So, I like a good lyric and I don't care who writes it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me, you are well known for relentless, stupidly long road trips back in the day, and this year you already did US. You played with the Screech and Weasel a few days ago or something like that. Now you're coming to Europe, then you're touring US again. You're not young anymore, even if you're still good looking. So, what has kept you on the road for 43 years besides women, drugs, and rock and roll? Was there
Yeah,
any
you
important
know.
change to the strategy of how Dwarves tour?
Yeah, I mean, it was all about sex and drugs.
Of
It
course.
just kept you on the road for years and years. Now it's more like it's the engine by which you sell records and merchandise. Like if you don't go out on the road, I feel like people just don't really register what you've done. And a lot of merchandise buys and people buying the record and listening to it or buying a shirt or whatever is like an impulse buy. Like they'll do it at your show, but if you didn't play that show, they weren't going to go online and look you up and go buy your stuff. So playing live is still really the essence of it, and you need the money, right? I mean, you get that's like
Yeah.
you got out there and it's basically like rock and roll's always run on selling people booze at the club. That's how the club makes money, and then they give me my money, and then people buy some shirts, and it's you got to kind of stay on the road. But yeah, it becomes more and more difficult the older you get, the more it takes a toll on your body, and the more it's just kind of useless because you're not doing all the sex and drug stuff. So it's like, well, what the fuck am I doing out here? Like, why am I listening to a drunk at 2 in the morning talk a bunch of shit when I could be home?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's something that you grapple with for sure.
Yeah. The early shows, the scene you helped create, it was sometimes, looking from my perspective, senselessly violent, and you didn't help calm it down at all. Uh, do you miss that at all? Would you consider it essential for a great Dwarves show? Do you miss violence?
That's a great question. I mean, I was never particularly good at violence. I think what I liked was just the chaos, the anything can happen here. Now I try and channel that into like anything can happen on this record. Or, you might hear any kind of song tonight. I think, the violence is a young man's game, and I think for the Dwarves, it was important to kind of be open on all fronts. Like, I don't think we were like a violent band. Like some bands were like to go out and kick ass and get in fights or whatever. The Dwarves, it was just more like we just freaked people out and they would attack us and we would fight back, like it was, but
Self-defense?
we did kind of egg on audiences because that was like, let's get wilder and wilder and wilder, and sometimes people didn't know when to stop, but yeah, the older you get, the more violence hurts. You got
Yeah,
to kind of watch out. I mean, I never saw that as the essence of the band, but I know some people did, because they'd be like, damn, I went out to your show and it was crazy and everybody was going nuts. I was like, but that, yeah, for me, that was more about the action, the fun,
yeah,
the unpredictability, and that, falls into all realms of sex, drugs, violence.
of course.
Um,
Dwarves almost always rejected punk rock uniformity, anti-PC, skeptical of punk rock stances, hedonism over politics, until Melania came along, which people will hear on Jenkem.
I mean,
You,
I still think that that's hedonism over politics. It just uses a political figure, but it's kind of laughing at it. Like I thought, because there's really two sides to me. I mean, I do think about the political situation all the time, and I
yeah.
lament what's happening
What I
in the
wanted
street.
to ask, this is like introduction to the question. All jokes aside, given what's happening in the US right now, where you actually live, is there a line, a moment where even you say, "Fuck it, we're against this, full stop. The dwarfs
Yeah,
are
I
against
mean,
this."
it isn't a line that I draw as a band
Mhm.
because to me, the dwarves were always about, as you say, just hedonism,
Mm.
the id, whatever's careening around in your brain. In a lot of ways, Trump is a very id-driven guy, right? He doesn't care about the country. Everything is just about him. He doesn't care about his family. He doesn't care about his wife. He just cares about himself and him getting everything that he wants and needs. And so he's like a truly hedonistic presence. It's so, it's funny. I mean, yeah, I wrote that song Melania because from the Dwarves perspective, it's like, how can I comment on this political situation? I'll just say like, I want to fuck your wife. She doesn't like you. You know what I mean? Like I can tell that she hates you. Everyone knows she hates you. She won't stay with you. And like, it's okay, sweetheart. I'll fuck you. You'll be okay. And so like that's the dwarves position on it. Me as an individual, I've watched with horror over the last 10, 12 years as we weren't in great shape to start with. And as we deteriorated further and further under this horrible person, ending with a coup, making us like a third world nation, and his reward for staging a coup, instead of being put to death for treason, which was what he deserved, he was made allowed to be president again.
Yeah,
So it, I feel very badly for my fellow Americans, but I also feel angry at them that they failed to do this and they failed to safeguard our democracy. But again, like those are very Blag and Paul Cafaro like sentiments. They're not dwarf sentiments because the dwarves take on it is like, it's all bullshit. None of it works. It's all a disaster. Fuck it. You can't trust anybody or anything. And whatever. I'll fuck Trump's wife and his daughter. That's that's sort of how that goes.
yeah, yeah. Completely understood. You drew the line between you as a person and a band as an entity. Completely understood. Uh, while talking disses, I have to ask you, you're the author of one of the most famous punk rock disses, Massacre. And what I really want to know, are those kinds of songs missing from punk rock today? Because if I diss someone now, I'll hardly cause any reaction. So is that lack of real reaction a punk rock problem, or the problem of the whole world being desensitized to controversy and violence?
There's a couple different things you're talking about. I mean, the
Yeah,
diss track is tends to be a hip hop phenomenon.
yeah.
Most people hadn't done it in rock and roll. And, you know, rock and roll is a lot of guys like hiding behind their management. Rock and roll is a lot of guys like, who are trying to run the world and get everything their own way. But then when they talk and do their interviews or do their song, then they're all peace and love and harmony. But then behind the scenes, they just like they have their fights through their management, having fights with other managers, and their lawyer having fights with other lawyers, and their publicist having fights with other publicists. So like, yeah, Massacre was an interesting jam in that, it actually took on real people who had wronged the band in various ways. And again, it's just another way that the Dwarves was too much too soon. People weren't ready for it. It wasn't really recognized as you have if I had some enormous publicist, in other words, if you look at the beef between Drake and what's his name, his name is escaping.
The other guy. I know who you're talking about, Drake, and oh fuck. Uh, I
He's
know
a much better rapper than
yeah,
Drake,
the
and he's
other
very
one, yeah, and but we
but
don't know his name, but I know who you're talking about.
um you know um it's that battle was so big it because they're both really famous. Kendrick Lamar, that was
Kendrick
the
Lamar, yeah, thank you.
that was a very famous beef because it's two very famous guys, so that's kind of how these things operate. Like everything in the modern world is just an outgrowth of marketing and social media. And so the real meanings of these things become obscured. For me, it was just a way of saying, yeah, here's another genre we can do. And what I'm going to do within this genre is just tell the people who were trying to run roughshod over the Dwarves, fuck you, and of course, the hope would be that they would be smart enough to diss us back and come up with some insult about me or whatever, but of course they can't. All they
That's
could
why I
do
use the word diss because
all,
it's a diss
it's
track.
like all they could do is call their managers or get mad or do whatever they're doing, you know what I mean? Because they're not working on the level of the dwarves, where you could actually have a battle through art and be on some level respectful of each other and still engage in the battle. It's more yeah, I mean, the dwarves just really stand apart from from the music industry in such a basic way. Like we're just shouldn't be here. Bands should have broken up decades ago. There's no commercial reason to stay around. But we do it for the art, and I do it because I love my friends and to be with the people that are important to me, and we have fun. And there's always another record and another song, and that's really the satisfying part of it.
With your skin in the game for so long, you probably have an answer to this one. What's the biggest lie the punk scene tells itself?
The biggest lie the punk scene tells itself. Um, yeah, the cancel culture stuff is really bad, and it's out of hand with the punk bands. And I think the lie that they tell themselves is that just having an identity by itself gives you worth. Um, in other words, everybody should be able to have a band or punk band or whatever, and nobody should be discriminated against. Like you would look at it like, oh, that band's just a bunch of girls, I'm not going to listen to that. Or, oh, that band's black people, I'm not going to listen to that. It's like that is wrong, right? But it's equally strange, in my opinion, when you do sort of the opposite of that and you say, you know, I'm a left-handed lesbian, punk singer. And so this band is for all of the left-handed lesbian punk singers. And if you don't, embrace we left-handed lesbian punk singers, then, you're wrong and you're sexist and you're bad. And it there's all these bands now that don't make any attempt to make general music that might appeal across the board to people, but rather, it's aimed specifically at themselves. It's like they're playing music in a mirror and just looking at themselves and saying, my identity has been underrepresented. So now here's the only Bosnian folk song punk band, and that's why this is important. And it's like it to me, that's just not general enough. It's too easy. It's too easy to just exist. You see this a lot with comedians now, where they'll get up on stage and it's like, hey, look, I'm 300 pounds, I'm divorced, and I'm a woman. So isn't that funny? It's like, well, no, you haven't said anything yet. Like you could be very funny and be a 300-pound divorced woman, but you have to say something that makes me laugh in order for me to be a fan of yours. It's not enough that just, hey, what's the matter? You got something against 300-pound divorced women? It's like,
Yeah.
well, no, but you need to see, you need to say something, you need to do something. And so I think a lot of bands came up that, look, rock and roll, I think, always was very sexist. The scene that I got into, there was a lot of trivializing of the female bands, which I didn't agree with. And I liked a lot of the people in the bands when I was coming up. And I wanted to be friendly with them because I wanted them to know that, the Dwarves thing was not supposed to be misogyny or hatred. It was just supposed to be, again, my id explosion, my hedonism. But, it made me happy when I was friendly with L7 and Babes in Toyland and the Muffs and these various groups. And then after, sort of in the early 90s, it started to turn with that and the Riot Girl movement, which was very important to a lot of women and has helped them express themselves, which I think is good, created this kind of separatism. It was almost like, we don't want you at our show. We don't approve of your band. We think you're a sexist. We think you're bad. And all of a sudden, again, people are on the other end of it instead of it being like, wow, I heard this female fronted band, they were great, like you don't need to make excuses for Blondie or the Pretenders. It's great music and you love it. You don't need to make excuses for a great band. You know, and so we're going to be playing with the Pandoras in a couple days, which to me is great. I remember them from the 80s. It was like a whole female band. And they had their aesthetic and what they were doing. It's like that is what turns me on. And when there's separatism and it's just like, people, so that's kind of the lie that punk tells itself is that your identity by itself has some value. It doesn't.
Yeah.
What has value is the group that you create or the record that you create or the performance that you create. And it can be about feminism or it can be about racial disparities or it can be about anything, but it has to be something,
It
people
should
don't
be
love
about something.
like people don't love the Bad Brains because they were black. People love the Bad Brains because they came into a scene that really didn't have a lot of black people in it, and they were one of the best groups in it. And people were like, "God damn, did you see those guys? They just killed it." Like they didn't need it to be like, well, you guys are good little guys for black folks. I mean, they didn't. You didn't need to make any kind of excuse for them. They
Yeah.
were great on their own. There's plenty of great gay performers, great female performers, great trans performers, great performers of every different group. And so just being that thing to me is not enough.
Of course. Tell me, you mentioned stand-up comedians before during the last answer, and you've been a lot of things. You've been a book author. You've been working as a singer for soundtracks, which we'll get to. You've been doing the music, and you've been. I think you even played in a movie. I heard about that. A misogynist,
I'll
or
take whatever comes my way.
yeah.
You know,
Is
the
there
offer
is there
me a
anything?
movie, I'll do it.
Yeah? Is there anything, any format that still intimidates you, that you would
Oh, I
like
mean,
to
stand up
take?
would be very difficult.
Really?
That's
Why?
so hard because you only have yourself. There's no noise to hide behind. You just have to get up and extemporaneously make people laugh. Um, I think that's very difficult. I think acting generally is very difficult. I don't really have a way into that.
Hmm.
With music, I've been doing it for so long, I kind of have a way into it. Just writing generally, I've written a lot, and so I've written a couple books. I've written, different things. I have that vocabulary makes sense to me. But when you're an actor or you're a stand-up, it's also kind of being likable or being relatable, which was never something I tried to do very hard. I was always more like, hey, man, you either get me or you don't, and you probably don't, and that's about it. We're done here. You
Okay.
know,
Since we're talking about people getting something or people not getting something, is there a Dwarves record you genuinely think flopped because the world wasn't ready to get it, or was it
oh
just a
yeah.
miss?
Yeah, I mean, I think Must Die was very much that record for me. It's a very sophisticated record with every different genre and lots of guest appearances and huge production value from Eric Valentine. I mean, it's still the loudest record in anybody's collection. It did all these genres, and it was less popular than most Dwarves records, just because there was something for everyone to hate. Instead of being like, oh, there's something here for everybody to like, it was more like, oh, I like the punk songs, but then he did that hip hop thing and I hated it. So, and by the time, 20 years later, we did the concept album, and that was a similar kind of thing, every genre and all this kind of thing. And people seemed to like that one better. People were more ready for it from us because we've been doing that for a long time. But yeah, Must Die was definitely one that slipped through the cracks, and people were. I thought, wow, man, I've finally made this work of genius, and people were like, nah, we don't like this.
There's a song I really love, and it's really close to my heart, and that's the Meatman song. Dwarves are the second best band in the world. After Meatman, it's on Savage Sagas. It's tremendous love for both bands, but Tesco ain't here. What's the story behind the song?
Well, Tesco wrote one of the first really good reviews of the Doors when we made a record called "Toolin' for a Warm Tea Bag" back in the '80s. So I've always had a warm spot for him, and of course, always was a Meatmen fan.
Yeah.
And he was a good example of one of the few like Midwestern bands with a sense of humor that had some fun with it. Bands like Meatmen or The Replacements. There was a lot of kind of humorless hardcore at that time. Yeah, I love it. I'm flattered that he wrote that song. I think what it came back to was I wrote a song called "Let's Just Get High and Fuck Some Sluts," and instead of giving it that
That's how it
title,
starts.
right, instead of giving it that title, I gave it the title "The Dwarves Are Still the Best Band Ever." Because that way, it wasn't so predictable and you actually had to say that sentence. The Dwarves are still the best band ever. So I think he was reacting to that, saying, well, you're not, my band's the best band ever, but you guys could be second best, which I just thought was great. I love Tesco, I'm honored.
Yeah, he's a great band, really fucking great band. You've been on several movie soundtracks. The Massacre was on Hostel. Uh, how did you end up on Me, Myself, and Irene? I know that.
I mean, it always comes down to whether the music supervisor on the thing is
Yeah.
familiar with your group. And then it comes down to, being able to run your own show and having your own copyrights, which is very helpful. At that time, we didn't. And so Sub Pop stole my money from that. It took a long time to get that back. It took an even longer time to get all my records back from them. So that just goes to prove, and that's why I would say to people like, hang on to your copyrights. And if you're going to make a deal with the record people, make it for a set amount of time. Don't let them own your record in exchange for, paying for a couple $1,000s of studio time. And I had to learn that the hard way. But yeah, I mean, dwarves used to get a lot more usages. And again, I think it's a function of age. When they go to a music supervisor, the music supervisor is not really encouraged to like, hey, go back and get something from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, what's happening right now? And it generally isn't, a 60-year-old guy in his band. So there's a lot less of people hitting me up for soundtrack stuff, which is a shame because we're making great records still.
You do.
Um,
You do.
but I don't blame them because most punk bands made one good record in the 80s or one good record in the 90s, and then they just live off that and they never make a good one again. And they either stop making records completely or they make just mediocre ones. So I don't blame people for not having their ears open to that and not being ready to hear it. But with the Dwarves, you really can go to our whole catalog and it's like, whoa, whoa, this is great. This is cool. Like a lot of records people forgot about or never thought about. It's like, oh, this one's good too, and this one's good too. And that I'm very proud of that. And I think it's different than most punk bands.
Yeah, my favorite mindfuck was you doing the sponge on the SpongeBob SquarePants because it's really fucking strange. Like it's a paradox. You're channeling your inner Lux interior and being
Oh,
child
huge fan.
friendly.
Yes, yes.
It's
Well,
it's how
yeah, and
how
it
did you
came
end up on
about.
that one?
Yeah, it came about very organically. The first season of SpongeBob, they had no budget, and the guy who started it and invented it, a guy named Steve Hillenburg, his wife was friendly with Saltpeter. They worked at a catering company together, and so she was literally like, "Do you have like a 4 track or something you can make cheap sounding like demos on?" And it was like that. And then would do the sponge. They came up with something and they wanted to kind of be like the crusher that the cramps do.
Oh,
Uh,
so it's
and so
intentional
yeah,
cramps.
this guy was a Cramps fan and he
Yeah.
said, can somebody sing like the Cramps? And Saltpeter's like, yeah, I got just the guy. I mean, I went in there an hour later, that thing was done. And, probably the biggest thing I'll ever do.
It's wonderful song. I love
Very,
it.
very odd how that comes about. But yeah, that was written by a dwarf and performed by a dwarf. So
Wonderful.
we're part of the SpongeBob lore.
It's amazing. I really fucking love that the whole cartoon universe, the soundtrack, they really pay homage to a lot of rock and roll music. So they're great. And
Yeah.
it's great hearing you on the record on the
Yeah,
soundtrack.
I love, I think that if you're talented, you should be able to plug that into various things.
Yeah.
Again, there's a lot of advantage to just doing one thing and do the one thing that your fans like, and you just do that one thing. And if it works commercially, that's all people do. Since nothing we did ever really worked commercially, I'm just like, well, I like lots of arts and lots of things, so I'm just going to do everything and see what happens.
Yeah. Let's end up with the books because I just got introduced to you as a book author. First of all, your old drummer, Veg Moore, wrote 2 books about his time with the Dwarves. Actually, one about his time with the Dwarves and one after the life with the Dwarves. Will we ever see one penned by you and why it hasn't happened yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would like to write one like that. Um, I've tried, but as I looked at it, I was like, I don't really like this guy. So, you have to kind of find a voice that you can live with. I love Vag, incidentally. He's just a great guy. And he's very comfortable laying out his foibles and flaws. I mean, as am I. It's just I hadn't found a way to really do it without sounding I don't know. It's hard to describe because I want to write the kind of book you're describing, but I've so far only been able to write fiction.
Yeah.
I find it more enjoyable to do and to read and to, I can be more playful and have a better time with it. I think when it comes to my own life, maybe it's a little too close to home to talk about, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah. You got three books out so far. I've just finished Nina like maybe 2 days ago or something. I started Highland Falls, which is a sequel.
Yeah.
And fuck me, I don't know what to say about Nina. It starts, I was like, what the fuck am I reading? But then you tie it up really fucking nicely. How was the Nina idea conceived? Was there first a character or an idea?
Yes. One of the first girls I ever really liked was named Nina.
Yeah.
And I remember I got to go out with her. I think I was in seventh grade or something. We went to the carnival and I heard Refugee by Tom Petty. That was like, wow, this is what teenagers do. We smoke pot. I mean, I must have been 12, 13 years old. This was back in the 70s. So that name, Nina, always resonated with me. But yeah, it was basically about girls I knew in high school that were kind of mean and over sexualized. And of course, I loved them. And I liked the idea of using a female that was basically me, like it was as opposed to trying to impress people with how much I knew about how teenage girls think or whatever, or doing research on it or doing, I just made her me, and found that that was a good springboard for funny adventures. And I just always thought that, yeah, there was just, this is why you love women, these women that you meet early in your life and they impress you and sometimes with how great they are and sometimes with how mean they are and how weird they are and with the things they'll do, for their own amusement. So yeah, that character appealed to me. And so then Highland Falls was sort of expanding on that, where now Nina is, one of the main characters, but there's other characters too, but to one degree or another, they were all me, like her boyfriend was a guy in the unlistenable band.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it, please.
Yeah.
I just need
No,
to
no,
read
I
it.
won't. Yeah, yeah, but there's just different characters. There's the old guy that goes back because he inherits his folks' house. So that was just sort of my impression of like the old me. Although I never got my parents' house or anything, but all of the characters in that book are also me.
Yeah.
So it's funny like how everything comes out that way. And I found it more interesting to do that than to say, okay, here's my actual story of what I actually did.
Are you currently writing something new?
No, I've been very prolific with the albums over the last few years. I mean, the Dwarves had uh, a long album, the concept album in 2022, and then in 2023. Um, well, let's see. 2021 was Ralph Champagne.
Yeah, yeah.
2022 was the concept album. 2023 was more songs from the concept
Concept
album
album. Yeah,
session,
yeah.
which were called Keep It Real, which was another pretty strong like EP. And then we put out Sunshine and Lollipops. I had to go back and remix a lot of Dwarf stuff from the 80s. So that kept me pretty busy. And then we made this album, Jenkem, and I made a follow-up Ralph Champagne record. So there's been so much music that I really haven't had time to get back to the writing, but I'd like to.
Yeah. If you had a chance to resurrect Nina West in comics, series, or a movie, who would be the perfect artist to make it happen? In which format would you like to see Nina?
Oh, it's very much like a Tarantino movie kind of thing, I think. With the young Uma Thurman as Nina kind of thing. The Yeah, I think a movie is more probably a better format for it than a novel. But everybody writes novels in a different way. I was never big on like very descriptive novels or very, overly psychologized novels. I like to kind of show you what happened and let you make up your own mind about it with a couple of key points about what the person was thinking or what they were doing or how things looked. But I like it better to be minimal and let you kind of make up your mind about what it was. Like I show you the events and then you can kind of determine what they mean and why.
Yeah. Uh, Thank you very much for this conversation. I would like to end it on a positive note with a story about those who come after us. I've heard you became a father. Congratulations. And
Yeah,
a lot of
absolutely.
a lot of times I get asked, I'm also a father, how will I explain this or that I wrote to my child? So was the question already asked over at your place, and do you even have an answer to that one? How would
I
you
do
explain?
not. I do not have an answer. It's very hard to explain. I mean, you look at this innocent little baby, and it's like, oh, how can I subject you to my sickness?
Well, hopefully you will get an answer to that one. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we all have to live with the baggage of our folks, right? So I had to live with mine, and he'll have to live with his, and that's just kind of how it's going to go.
yeah. All the health and wealth to your kid and to you as well. Thank you very much for joining me today, and
Thanks,
I'll see
buddy.
you.
Send me a link to this. I'd love to
Yeah, of
see.
course, of course. We'll post this as a video definitely for the whole Dwarves base to see it. And I'll see you in Croatia. We are sharing the stage on July 3rd in Zabok. Regenerator is a great club. We played there on May 9th, so we enjoyed it, and I think you'll
Can't
enjoy
wait.
it as well.
What's the name of the show here?
Dwarves and POPIK. POPIK is my band, and we are playing in
Oh no, the
Zabok.
name of your this show we're doing right
Oh,
now,
this
the
show. Actually, I
podcast.
don't have a name. I have a long-lasting media project called ISK, and it's been a radio show that started in 2004, and we've been doing a web magazine since 2004 and everything.
I see.
And I've recorded this, and maybe I will turn it into a video show or something like that. I will not call it a fucking podcast. I hate everything's a podcast these days. I will call it probably ISKonversations or something like that.
I
But
got you. Well, good luck with it.
thank
Thank
you
you for
very much.
talking.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon in Croatia.
You got it, bud.
Cheers. See ya.
Bye.